Good evening. I call this meeting of the Westborough School Committee to order. The time is 6 p.m. The meeting is recorded live on Westborough TV. All those who can, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda will be the superintendent's update.
Great, and this is it's kind of a packed agenda tonight. I
Yes.
want to sort of thank you in advance for your patience and fortitude. And it starts off with a thank you for Jerry too, who has been our fantastic student representative this year. I just wanted to acknowledge a couple things. I feel like Jerry is one of those students who I see sort of everywhere and is involved in everything. I was kind of looking around and his name popped up online for being involved with the kind of Worcester Community Foundation, doing work there. I first met him when he came to approach me about some sustainability work going on in the district. Then he ended up appointed here and then volunteered to help us with AI committee work. I know he does track and field, and particularly pole vault, which is crazy, and we like that anyway. And I wanted to just acknowledge, as a student representative, it's not always easy to speak up in these meetings and say things that are kind of directly related to the substance of what this board does. And I appreciate that you took the opportunity to do that, to really say things about the kind of policy and direction of the district that I think matter, and student voice matters. And your kind of input has really, I think, helped this board see things through student lens. So thank you for that. I don't know if anyone else wants to say a few words, but we have something for you as well.
Steve, would you like to?
Well, very soon you're going to have the most exciting part of your life. And so I guess the comment you made when asked whether you wanted to be here is understandable. So with that, I wish you all the best as you go forward.
Jay?
I would echo what Allison said in the way you came in and were honest about you suppose you're happy to be here is what I hope you will keep doing. You really contributed to this committee the last year, and that's not always easy to do. Speaking from experience, it can be intimidating, and especially for a student. So thank you for your contributions and good luck.
Just say with Jerry, I had the pleasure of knowing you beforehand. I was very excited when you got selected. You'll be sorely missed, but I feel confident saying that this is goodbye for now, but not goodbye forever. So good luck in your next steps, and good luck.
And thank you, Jerry. I always enjoy your presence at our meetings. I felt like you were always comfortable here ever since you started. And you have this cheerful demeanor, and you were always prepared. Brought all the events from other schools. You're leaving big shoes to fill for the next student. And good luck in your next adventure.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
On behalf of the committee, we have something for where you're going and something for where you're from. We're really proud of you. I think there's a card making its way around here too. We'll make sure we get it. So, congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, Allison, next one would be...
Continue. I wanted to also take the opportunity to introduce to you a new member of the community. Mark Labita, who is our new athletic director, is here this evening. I'll say just a couple nice words and then give him the chance to say hello, and then give you all the chance if you have any questions or comments for him. Mark comes to us from Bristol Plymouth Technical School, and it was a very competitive process. I know Jane and Jakub were both involved at some point in the process, and we had many qualified applicants, 3 exceptional finalists. And I think when we looked at Mark and his qualifications, we really felt this sense of kind of the right person to help this community right now in this position, and it just seemed like a good match. I think he brings tremendous background and experience. He was an athletic trainer, so he has that sort of medical lens. He has an administrator's license. He's doing a kind of dual role right now, and the things that we heard from his prior district were really about forming outstanding relationships with students, which is, I think, fundamental to this high school. I think that's something our team up there does really well. They know the students, they care deeply about students, and secondly, about kind of program development, and that's something that we've sort of talked about and are looking for. So, welcome, Mark. We're really thrilled to have you here.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me tonight. I really look forward to joining the Westborough community. I'm very excited for the role, and thank all of you for allowing me to have this opportunity moving forward. So,
Thank you for coming here today. I was only available to come for the first meeting of the search committee, and but I did review all the bios, and you must feel very proud. You should be very proud for winning this race, because we had a lot of phenomenal candidates, and you were one of them, obviously. I'm just have one question for you. You're coming from a very different school. It was technical, regional school. Here, any first impressions?
I love the sense of community. I really appreciate the process that you guys went through to find the next person for the role. I really get a sense of kind of a family community feel, and that's what I was looking for. My school previous to Bristol Plymouth was in Florida. It was a very community-driven school. You grew up there, you stayed there, and you were there, came back there, and usually worked there. So I'm really looking forward to that again, working with youth athletics, and really bringing the whole program together to build from youth all the way up to high school. So that's what I'm excited for about it.
So thank you. Any comments, questions?
Oh, welcome, and I hope the reverse commute to here is better than what you were doing before.
Yeah, it actually is 7 miles closer for me, so
Very good.
it's going to be a good time for me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Westborough.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
And I did tell Mark he was under no obligation to stay the whole meeting. And I also do notice that Jerry's parents are here. So if at some point, given the graduation week, you feel like you need to duck out early today, that would be totally understandable. So appreciate your presence here, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, in terms of the superintendent's update, we have an update from our wellness committee. This is a very large group that Matt pulled together along with Roger Anderson, and they are both here tonight to go through an update and a new recommended policy.
Hello, good to see you all again. So we can keep this pretty tight because, like you said, you have a packed agenda tonight. So we, like many communities, after going through COVID, a few things kind of slipped by. And so one of those was a wellness committee, and we felt like it was really important to bring that back. So we reached out to community members, we got school members, we got people in the nutritional field, we got medical professionals, we had our nurse leader, our SEL director, we had food services, assistant superintendent, myself. We had Sarah was on our committee, and we actually had a committee of over 50 people the first time we came together, which was significant in the community. And we took a very dated policy and basically brought it up to tip-top shape. It's driven by some national laws and by some state laws. And we worked with a great consultant through Mass Health Works, Charlotte Stevenson, who took us through, and they have an inventory that you take your wellness policy and match it up against, and ours needed a little bit of work. So we did that work and then brought it back to our committee again. Our committee met 3 times this year. A few of us additionally met with Charlotte 3 different times to go through what we were doing with the committee. What was our policy stating? Was it accurate? Was the DESE going to approve it? Because we had to get it through them and bring it to you as a policy. And I think the real work, so there's 2 parts. There's the wellness policy itself, which ensures that all the conditions for great learning occur in our schools, particularly around the ideas of nutrition education, physical education, health and wellness. So that's kind of the envelope. And do we have a policy that makes sure all the things that are supposed to be happening so that kids can learn really well is in place? I think we were always doing those things that were in the policy, but this really clarifies it for us. The second piece is that a wellness committee now will stand in place and move forward. And so the committee by law is supposed to meet 3 times a year. So moving forward, we will do that. And throughout this process with the big committee this year, it was very nice to see that what the committee brought to us aligned very nicely with what we were already doing here in the schools and what's in the strategic plan around wellness for our students in our community. And when we met with the group, we sort of looked at three big goals that we're going to keep in mind moving forward. These are big buckets. And the goal of the Wellness Committee meeting next year is to go through these things and figure out what goals can we have. And I think a lot of it will match up with the work we're already doing in the strategic plan. And we just want to have more community engagement with it. Because if we're all on the same page around the well-being of our kids and what they're eating and how they're coming to school and what they're doing, then we're in a really good spot. So those three big buckets, a lot of the wellness policy is driven around nutrition. And Jim Hourahan, our school foods director, has done a really nice job of updating our menus. There's gluten-free options at all the schools now. And interestingly, something I didn't know is that next year's school menus get built now. So while we were working with all of our menus last year as he was working to build it up, had to do it, kind of piecemeal. And now, knowing what we know, he's built a great menu for next year. There was some questions around, some like sugary cereals and things in our breakfast offerings, and those have been improved for next year already as a result of this committee meeting. So there's a big piece of nutrition that we're going to continue to look at. The second piece is mental health, well-being, protective factors, belonging. So protective factors are all the things that relate to students performing well and being healthy. So things like having positive relationships with peers, having positive relationships with trusted adults at schools, making sure the environment is in a good place, having good nutrition for them. So the preventative work should be built into what we're doing, and a lot of our programming is aimed toward that already. And then the last one really deals with technology, from AI to cell phones to screen time. All of that was clearly brought up by our committee as something that was important. And in parallel to that, we've got some state mandates that we're looking at around cell phones. We've got major work around AI and its impact on education and its impact on our students' well-being. So the committee is going to continue to serve us as a sounding board and a number of good, strong voices, because there's some great medical professionals, as I said, as well as experts in the wellness community on it. So as I said, we'll meet 3 times next year. We've got a new policy. I don't think, unless you want me to, I really need to go through it, but the big buckets that I've identified is what the policy asks us to be on top of. And the good news that I can share with you is everything it's asking us to do, we are indeed doing. And so next year is to look at what direction do we want to take and really hone in and continue to do better. Next week, I'm getting the full set of our Metro West data from November. So we're very excited to take that and potentially use the Wellness Committee to lean into that as well. What have I missed?
It's good to see you here. I want to thank everyone that was serving on the Wellness Committee. As Roger said, we had about 53 community members, very wide swath of stakeholders that showed up and were passionate about the health of our students in our community. I also just want to highlight in your school committee packets, you received 2 documents. One is a kind of 30,000-foot memo about the wellness process that we engaged in, and the other is a line-by-line change memo, because if you notice, it's a red line version. The previous policy is significantly outdated, so there's probably more red ink than there is existing new ink. But rest assured that it was an iterative process of refining the wellness policy, which Roger spoke of. Worked with a consultant, DESE reviewed it, and it's been shared and going back and forth a good half dozen times at least. So with that being said, I don't know if you have questions.
Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Well, let's start with Steve.
No questions? Thank you, Roger.
I don't have any questions, but I was just overwhelmed by the number of people on the committee and community members especially, and I just think it speaks to how important the community thinks this is. So I thank you both for taking this on. And the 3 big buckets are like so big, but I really appreciate you taking it on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. Just a couple of quick questions. I know you said obviously this group was 50 people, which is fantastic. It sounds like the next group, like next year, is going to be smaller. Like, do we know what the size is going to be?
So we don't. I think from my perspective, anybody in the community who wants to serve on the wellness committee can do so. I'm happy to manage a large group, and I think what we can do is take that group and take the expertise that it has and the passion that it has and point it in the direction of those three buckets and move forward. So we sort of met, our most recent meeting was a little bit smaller, and we are offering for anyone who wants to stay on the committee to do so. And we will probably advertise again, because as people change and go through, we definitely want to get a couple student representatives as well. And that's one of our goals for next year. So I can't tell you exactly what the size will be, but if somebody's passionate about it, we'll take them and let them help us out.
Just adding on to that, we did not turn away anyone. Anyone that expressed interest this year, we welcome them, and we would do the same next year. And for those members of the Wellness Committee or the general public, if you're curious, Roger very generously has been hosting the agenda meetings, and the notes will be on the wellness page for our district website.
Fantastic. So I know that you said that the majority of this is more so like it was an update in the policy, but more so like codifying what we're already doing. Were there any areas that stuck out of like, diverging from what we were doing previously?
No, I think we just really need to align ourselves with the latest laws. As the new, recently the national nutrition guidelines have changed significantly, so we had to align with that. So I think it was really just bringing it up to speed, making sure it was current, because as laws change, as administrations change, some of the things change like that, and we wanted to make sure we were right up to both the spirit and the letter of the law. Yeah, great question.
Yeah, awesome. And then my last question here. I know that you likely aren't the best person to speak on this, but very curious about like the menu building, and that sounds like a very interesting process. And so I'm assuming that a lot of it has to do with like the new national laws that you're saying and the nutrition, but is there anything else that they're like reviewing and taking feedback to inform next year?
Yeah, so I think it is ideally representative of our community. So the type of foods that we offer are different than they were 25 years ago for sure, not just because of manufacturing, but because of the nature of our population. The gluten-free is a great example of that. That goes all the way down to the elementaries. The other piece I think that was identified through our process is making available to both students and parents exactly what is in all of our food offerings and making it easily accessible. So we're looking at moving into that digitally for next year. So I think the ideas of farm to table, also looking at local resourcing whenever possible for what we do, the quality of our foods being the best that they can possibly be, is probably what we would look at relative to that menu building. And Jim's done a really nice job. He's new this year for us, and he's been working really hard on that.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Jerry.
No questions.
Sounds good. Thank you for a succinct presentation and putting it all together so neatly. I just have a few questions. So I actually had the same question as Tim regarding the differences between the old policy and the new policy. The old policy, do you remember when it was established?
It had sat for quite a while. So it was iterative in the early 2000s, but it had sat for quite some time. And then when COVID came, I mean, all the wellness directors I spoke to said that was kind of the last thing that anybody was thinking about during that time. There are still a number of schools that are not there. One thing I did neglect to mention, as a result of this process, we were named a wellness champion school district. The banner's in my car. We have a big banner that we are the wellness champion school district, because we went through the process of tier 1 coaching with the consultants and took the inventory and actually held up our policy next to it and said what is and what isn't. And that was a really great, robust, as Matt said, iterative process. So yeah, it had been a little while.
That's great. So I want to understand better the next step. So it sounds like you mentioned that now with the menu changes, we are up to speed with this policy that essentially describes the status quo. And so what are the goals for the next year for this committee, since we already aligned with this policy?
So I think the goals for the next year will be clarified in two ways. One, when our leadership team meets over the summer, we do some strategic planning for next year. And a lot of this work is already embedded in that strategic plan. You know, student well-being is one of the big buckets of our district-wide strategic plan. Secondly, it will be the committee's job to get together and look at nutrition, again, look at the mental health and protective factors that we have in place, and figure out what do we want to do about that? What does our data tell us, and what type of programming will we have? That's going to be my job, but I think it's going to be great to lean into the community in what expertise they have and what they're seeing. And we've got a dentist, we've got an orthopedic surgeon, you know, they have certainly interest in what our kids are having and doing. And then the whole idea of technology, screens, AI, cell phones, that's kind of a center of a bullseye around student wellness for me, because I think it's having a huge impact on their life. And sneak peek on the Metro West data, all of it is very good except for students' exposure to screens and their use in terms of how much of their day it is consuming. That's a district-wide and a Metro West trend, but our numbers are very up there. The mental health is doing very well, substance use is down, but they're finding their way into the screens as a potential addictive behavior. So that's something that we're going to be talking a lot about. We're also part of a grant through the Metro West Health Foundation for community innovative solutions to technology.
Sounds good. And one last question. Will these changes to nutrition, you know, throughout the entire school system, will they impact our budget in any way?
That's a great question. I think, you know, I don't know the specifics of the budget and the contract we have with our food services, so I could not answer that.
Right now, you know, food services is run primarily through a revolving account because of the free lunch program, and that is in very, very good shape. We are not concerned about that at all, and we have, as Roger mentioned, a new manager who's exceptionally devoted. I think we're really enjoying working with him, and you know, in addition to some of the kind of health-oriented choices, he's looking at kind of culturally appropriate choices and you know, vegan, vegetarian, giving students more options. So, but he's come to us from a senior care background, so he's got a lot of experience taking a budget and stretching it. So even if we were to kind of run into tighter times, we are very confident we've got the right person doing the work. So.
Excellent. I'm excited for the changes to come. It's been a common complaint for a lot of parents, so I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
And I'm very excited to invite up some of our students who are here tonight. Amanda Ergnow, who's the DECA advisor, is here with a group to put forward a proposal.
So hi again, everyone. I'll be back in the fall to get my overnight things approved, but I wanted to bring our school-based enterprise team up with me today to give a presentation on what we're looking for to add to Westborough High School in a school-based enterprise. For those of you who don't know what DECA is a business, almost like a decathlon club where students can compete and learn 21st century skills, and are essentially one of the opportunities that DECA has is to have a school-based enterprise, and where students can either do a retail operation or a food services operation. And so we are looking to bring what we call a vending machine or a spirit box to our high school to help offset some costs for the students' trips. But I'll have our students take it away and kind of go from there. Sound good?
We're working off the PDF version, so I'm going to be your scroller here, so you can just cue me if you need to move forward.
Hello, how is everybody today?
Good.
My name is Shreyas, and today we're here to talk to you about the Spirit Box proposal. So basically with the Spirit Box, our goal is to provide WHS staff and students with convenient access to a variety of foods while generating enough profit to support our DECA competitions. Another goal is to create a self-sustainable business that contributes to a welcoming school atmosphere. Our main goal is to help make DECA more affordable to our competitors.
So why do we want Spirit Box at our school? And there is this problem that we've kind of come across in the high school, and that there is no convenient food options for staff or for students during the school day. So our first option for us would be to wait until break or lunch to get food. And that works for most of us, but also there are times when we get really hungry during the school day and we have to wait until third lunch. So it's like way later in the day, right before the last period of the school day. And it can get tough sometimes to focus and concentrate during the school day, especially because it gets long and we get tired. And there are other things that we do after school too. And so food is something that's really important that not only the students but also the staff get into. And there's another option for after school. We can go downtown, and that can get kind of dangerous or difficult during the winter when it's cold and roads get icy. It's also not always the most convenient thing for student athletes or people who are part of different clubs because they run right after school sometimes. So there isn't a lot of time to go downtown for 15 minutes and then come back. So that's also another problem that students can run into. We can also remember to pack some food before, but speaking from experience, it's kind of hard to do that, especially when we're running late. There's other things that you're trying to remember, and sometimes food is the thing that gives in the morning. I don't eat my breakfast sometimes when I feel like I'm running late and I can't get that in without being late to first period. And I know a lot of other students feel the same way. And there's also another option to buy concessions after school, but those usually run during games, I think during the fall and winter, and that's not always an available option. I think it runs based off of Stuco too. So again, it's not an available option for students after school. And then there's also ordering delivery, so door dashing, but a lot of the students here they're either not working or they're earning minimum wage. So it's not always the most affordable option for food either way. So those are some problems that we run into at the high school. And so why do we want Spirit Box specifically? Like, why the vending machine? And the number one thing is that it's really convenient. So people don't have to leave the building to go get food, and it's going to be in the school. So the location is going to be accessible to most students and staff. And it takes many different payment options. So you can do cash or cashless. It doesn't matter if you have your card on you, or you can do Apple Pay if you don't have cash on you either. So there's multiple different options for students and for staff. It's also an opportunity for students at the high school, especially for people who are part of DECA. It's an opportunity for us to learn how to operate a business because Spirit Box comes with a curriculum that makes us learn how to operate a business. And it's not just something that's for the 5 of us who are working on it. It's also open to our entire club and anybody who joins. And it's for the future of the club too. It's not just something that we're hoping to run for a short amount of time. It's something that we want to keep and hopefully have a lasting impact at our school. It's also self-sustainable, so once we implement it, it should pay itself off in the future. And it provides more opportunities for students in DECA to compete in the future, and it makes it more affordable for us to advance to different levels of competition. And so we sent out a survey earlier in December to the students and the staff, and we asked them to answer a couple questions about the vending machine. And one of the questions was, how likely would they be to purchase a product from the vending machine? And so the scale was 1 being not likely at all, and then 5 being very likely. And we found that majority of the school would be somewhat likely to very likely to purchasing a vending machine. So there's some clear interest at our school for this product. So we hope that it's going to be something that has lasting impact at our school.
Like we saw on the previous slide, the Google form, we took that in October, and it basically talks about if they wanted food or drinks and the desired products. So based on that Google form, we have different varieties such as chips, protein bars, gum, cookies, other essentials like tissues, chapstick, pencils. But a main challenge for us was to make sure that every product follows the USDA Smart Snack nutrition standards, so that
It's a nice connection.
we had to make sure every product followed it, and we did this by using the product calculator, entering in the nutrition information such as the calories, sodium, and etc.
Hello, I'm Rishi. So the Spirit Box will operate under the vending machine industry, and this industry is expected to grow at a steady rate of 3.2% through 2033. And 67% of vending machine transactions are cashless, which means our vending machine has a cashless option, which means our students have a higher chance of getting a snack even if they don't have cash. And cashless payments average around 55% higher than cash transactions, which is better for our DECA club because we obviously need to help send some students to different levels of competition. This means that the vending machine is predicted to grow, and the demand for it is going to grow as well. The demand for convenient food options in school increases as well. And the implementation of cashless options reduces the risk of theft because there's not if it yeah like if there's no cash to steal, no one's gonna steal anything.
I'm Shreyan. So I know one of your biggest questions right now is how much this is going to cost, right? So Spirit Box, its base price is about $15,000. With products, installations, electricity, and maintenance, its total will come out to about $16,000. But we intend to fundraise all of it ourselves. And we have a plan. So for financing, we're going to be doing fundraising. We have already applied for grants. We have partnerships with restaurants, for example. We did one in January with Panera, in which we raised some money, over $100. We've done bake sales, competitive events. In the works right now, we have a pickleball fundraiser. And right now, we've raised already over $3,000 through our Domino's fundraiser. For marketing, we're going to be using social media, word of mouth, and flyers. For example, we have our Westborough DECA Instagram, and we'll be printing and making out flyers for all of these different events we're going to do. We are already taking a 20% profit margin as a minimum. As you can see here, we've laid out some products and exactly how much profit we're going to be making off each product.
So for market regulations, we are planning to, as mentioned before, follow USDA Smart Snacks in School nutrition standards. And we are going to follow regulations set by you guys, the school committee. We are planning to operate outside of school hours, so before and after school, so we're not directly competing with the cafeteria with the snacks that they sell. And we will also not compete with the products sold, so we will be selling completely different products than the cafeteria does. So right now, this is our timeline. Some of it has already been completed, as you can see. From October to January, we finished our business plan write-up, and along with our research and decision of what products that we wanted to be sold in the vending machine. Around February, we got approved by our building principal. We presented to Mr. Callahan, and he gave us the go. Right now, we are at May 2026, obviously, and right now, it's our presentation and hopefully approval. And so as we are currently in the process of, we are fundraising for DECA Spirit Box, and we're hoping to maybe get the logistics and fine details all ironed out around August or October, and we're hoping to get it maybe around late 2026, but the sooner, we're hoping for sooner. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent job. Probably have some questions for you. I'm going to start with Steve.
Yeah, I have a few. First of all, great presentation. Obviously, your interest in the program itself will be beneficial for whatever you learn in this program as life goes on. And so, because this is a business, you'll have problems. And so the first one is, what is the structure of management versus the maintenance of the equipment? Is it almost like one group that is the school side group and the maintenance of it, because they're one and the same in the real world? So want to try that one?
Yeah, so we do have a vice president of the school-based enterprise, which will be announced at 7 p.m. tonight, as they just did voting today. So the club votes on who will be the vice president of that essential enterprise. And then what will happen is when we come back in the fall, the VPs will work with the DECA students to come up with a team, like a core team. This is my team this year. Doesn't mean it has to be the same, but I hope that they all want to be part of that core team for next year. And they will help kind of manage the products, making sure that we're reporting out consistently what is selling, what is not selling, as well as we plan to publish all of our data and give it to the school, so that the business department, the math department, anyone in the school that wants to see what's happening and use it in their curriculum, they can do so. But essentially also we worked with the wellness committee as well as our food operations manager. He also said that he would train the kids on the first in, first out, which is like a certification that he can give them essentially, so that we're making sure that the food that's going in is the proper way it's supposed to be in a vending machine, as well as kind of learn more about that process and what it means to run a vending machine. Granted, this is a brand new piece, so there's going to be some bumps and hiccups in the road, but I'm lucky enough that I'm very dedicated to this, so I want to make sure that the kids understand that there's going to be different steps that we have to take. But that's kind of the overarching view is we'll have a president of the SBE, we'll have a smaller committee that's kind of the guiding committee, and the goal is to kind of give the opportunity for any DECA student to kind of learn these skills and learn more about the vending machine itself.
Okay, my next question is, who will deal with complaints? Because you guys are dealing with your peers. And as you know, no one's satisfied with anything. And so how are you going to deal with that?
Yeah, so actually in our survey that we sent out, we actually had a lot of people complain, saying that they were upset that we wanted to bring a vending machine to the school. And what I want to reiterate is that we're not doing this because we want the kids to just eat Takis and just, have a bunch of snacks in school. The goal is that we are building a community-based piece that the DECA group is going to run, but hopefully that we can integrate it kind of further into the curriculum and make sure that it's a learning opportunity and experience for these students. Complaints probably will come to me, as they always seem to do for DECA, which is fine. And I kind of work with everyone in our building. I'm lucky in the school counselor, so I have a lot of opportunity to talk with multiple people, multiple staff. But I also will have a co-advisor next year. So we will work together as a team to kind of come up with some strategies and plans. It's going to be one of our business teachers. So he's also going to help me with that process as well.
Sort of what I was wondering, though, is how do the members of the DECA team deal with the complainant? Because that's the experience in life that nobody likes, but you need to know it in business. And so somehow or another, I think you need to have a structure that allows the DECA students to participate in that, because that really is a learning experience. Next one is who manages and decides how the payments will be structured, particularly whether it's cash, whether it's a card. Who processes the card, who has to pay for the use of the card. As you know, with a Visa card or something else, there's a fee involved.
Yes.
Which I think was embedded in one of the statements of the students, that you might make more money if it was cash. But so you have all of those things that you have to deal with, and it's a learning experience for anybody's business. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, so the Spirit Box program, which is a national program that is partnered with DECA, actually gives a lot of services that we wouldn't get if we were to just get a vending machine off Facebook Marketplace. So they are the ones doing the cashless reconciliation. And from what I understand, from speaking with the Spirit Box team, as well as speaking with other schools that have a Spirit Box in their schools, their final year-end profits, Spirit Box takes 20% of that off. And that goes right towards the cashless reconciliation. Once we purchase the machine's ours. It is owned by the school. And so every year, I think right now the quote is $920 for maintenance of the machine, and they will help with any kind of issues, as well as a curriculum, as well as all of the online cashless reconciliation, sales, marketing trends, all of those things that they give us. That's like a yearly price. It's just, but we own the machine itself. So at any point we could say we no longer want the cashless option. We would like to shut that down, and they could say okay, and we would just have the cash option.
Yeah, the background of that question, though, is also what leads to complaints. Is it was broken on a Sunday night and the person couldn't get the food they wanted, and things happen. So that becomes part of the whole story as to the functionality of the system and the service to the people. I guess that's enough for me. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I have a lot less business experience than Steve. So, but I did work for a student-run business in college and learned so much. So I think this is really, really cool. Also, I just think DECA, I can't get over this program. I didn't know anything about it. And what I've learned since joining the school committee, I'm just so impressed by it. So thank you for serving as the advisor and for all of you for being here. I was really impressed with your business plan and also the response rate to your survey, because it can be really hard to get anyone, especially students, right, to respond to a survey. And so any thoughts about, can you tell us a little bit about the process for sending out the survey? And you got complaints, but they must not have said they wouldn't purchase because there weren't that many people.
We know
that
that
said,
everybody will, sooner or
right.
later.
So what was maybe one of the students could tell just quickly about how the survey.
I kind of designed it, right? You made it. Yeah.
So we sent out a census, so it wasn't a sample that we took to the school, we sent it out to everybody. And I think the response rate was about 1/3 of the school. And we broke it down by the school, like the grade, and then whether or not they were a staff member. And I don't remember off the top of my head what exactly those responses were for any of those, but there are a lot of different questions about what products they wanted. There was also, before we had to pick between whether we wanted the vending machine to be selling drinks or selling food. And so that was also a big part of how we made that decision was the survey. And any complaints also, that's like what we looked into through the survey. So that gave us a lot of insight on what direction we should take the vending machine into, so.
A 1/3 response rate is really impressive. I mean, I know that probably doesn't sound that great, but it's hard to get people to respond. So it's exciting. And one last question: where are you proposing to locate where will it be?
So we have 3 proposed options. Part of it has to be approved by our building principal, and part of it will have to be approved by the blanking right now on the name, but essentially the person that like inspects our building inspector. There we go. So we have 3 kind of thought processes. One, we would have it in the main lobby of the high school, which is a really easy access point. There's issues probably a little bit with it, depending on like what events are going on, where it can be comparative to doors and all of those things. Then another spot would be right outside the cafeteria, not in the cafeteria because that would compete with our food services, but it would be outside of the cafeteria. And then our last piece would be either closer to the gym/auditorium area. Part of the issue, and I've run into it, I've actually worked with our maintenance crew trying to figure out a little bit about like what the power wattage we will need for the vending machine, and it does use a normal 3-pronged plug. However, the electrical plans for the building are not accurate, so like we have to do a little bit of kind of more like investigating on that piece. I think the one last question you had was, where did the idea come from? Did you ask kind of like why we came up with this? Or?
No, but we'd love to hear
You
that.
can answer.
Yeah.
Sure. So in the past, before I was the DECA advisor, there was a previous DECA advisor who ran a school-based enterprise, and it was really hard because it was only during lunches, and kids had to give up their lunchtime in order to run the business. So they would sit there eating their food while selling things out of a cart. And in my mind, like that's not a good wellness standard to have. Because kids should be able to eat and have a duty-free lunch, essentially, is what I kind of view it as. And so we wanted to have something that was going to be a little bit less schedule intensive, as well as it kind of can, like live outside of the school day if we needed to. So we can stock it when we have DECA meetings every Wednesday after school. If the kids want to come in early and stock the vending machine, we could do that. So like there's opportunities where they're not necessarily interrupting their school day in order to run the business. So that's kind of where it came from. I had gone to internationals 2.5 years ago, and they had given a presentation to a bunch of advisors for professional learning series. And I was trying to figure out what would be the best way to help kind of fund these programs because DECA is quite expensive and most of it is the travel and hotel cost. It's not the actual convention, it's not the actual competition itself, it's the travel. And not a lot of grants or opportunities arise to have funding for that. And so a lot of schools will have some sort of school-based enterprise. Most technical schools do a food service through their culinary programs. So that's kind of where that kind of came out of.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Tim.
Sure. Ms. Obersang, thank you so much to all of you for the presentation. Awesome work. And so my first question is regarding the pricing. And so I'd be curious, to hear a little bit about, like if that's set by Spirit Box, if that's set by us, and then just understanding a little bit more about the numbers that were in the slide.
For the pricing, we basically found the unit price for each product. Based on that, as we said, 20% profit margin was our minimum. But some of them were around, like the Skinny Pop or the Pirate's Booty. That was 43 cents, I think, for a unit price. We still want to make profit off that. So we researched, and I found out that for an average vending machine, they double or triple the price. So we're making the prices. We wanted to still make it profitable. So $1.50 or $1 kind of made sense to price the products.
Yeah. And I think that's great that, because there's obviously additional skills in having to set those prices and see how, supply and demand go up and down, which is awesome. So I just wasn't sure because I think that you had maybe said something about it being like profit. And I wasn't sure if this was like the pure profit for your choose. It's like, well, this might be some expensive Pirate's Booty, but that's good to hear. Awesome. And so it sounds like, and so the prices is fully set by you, the students. Is that right?
Yeah.
The best part about owning the vending machine is that we do everything. So we set the pricing, we set the items that are in the machine, obviously approved by the school committee. So we kind of decide what we want. That's why we polled everyone that was kind of in the school to see like what are things that they're looking for to eat during the school day in that sense. So that kind of is what drove what our product line would be. And then I worked with Mr. Anderson, Mr. Mailer, and met and gave the kids some more opportunities to do some more research deeper into the USDA food guidelines and smart snacks. And so then they would go and pick what they would think, to be honest, is going to be best for them and what they're interested in. And so part of this also will be, we will probably have to come up with some way to kind of give feedback on the vending machine. So like, whether that be a QR code where kids can scan and say, this product was too expensive, I didn't like this product, like that kind of questions, feedback, that kind of thing. So there will be that kind of steering guide as well, but that will be kind of later. But because we own it, we can put whatever we want in it.
That's awesome, yeah. And a couple quick technical questions off of that, because I know you talked about the ownership, which sounds like, which is great. I am curious, so I know that you talked a little bit about like the maintenance and like, is that a contract that we enter into with Spirit Box, like they are going to provide the maintenance, or?
That's a great question. I believe because it's, so when we purchase the machine, like we own the machine, but we would sign a contract stating about like the cashless reconciliation at the end, as well as like the maintenance and approval essentially of the machine. They don't give me that contract right away. They kind of like to be like, here's the quote, and like, we'll wait till you say something about the quote before we give you all of the details. And granted, it's still a lot of money to just fundraise in general. So, it's something that like they were giving me right away. I know if I reached out to our representative, I could certainly get a copy of it so that you could all see it. But I'm not 100% sure. I think it's like almost like, I don't want to say co-ownership, but it's not like we own the machine. It's our machine. It's going to be wrapped with like Westborough information and all that stuff. We set the prices. We do all of that. They just do the yearly fee essentially that does like the all of the online data, all of the cashless programming, as well as like we get updated curriculums and different projects that go with that.
Sure, yeah, and just trying to understand some of the kind of nuances there that you're talking about. And I'm not sure, again, a technical question, but at first I was envisioning this being outside the school, and it sounds like when you say outside the cafeteria, I'm assuming that's like at the bottom of the stairs, like right outside the doors.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's probably more relevant if it was outside, but there's no conversation around like insurance, anything like that we might need for this?
I don't believe so. I don't know. That would probably be more of a question for like maybe like the building inspector. I don't know. We have a vending machine in the school that's Dasani needs like water. But I don't know like if there's a liability insurance for that or anything like that.
Yeah, we will together for sure.
Yeah. So that I don't know. But again, the goal is that DECA is raising all the funds in whatever way we can. So, you know, our timeline is obviously very aggressive, as business people like to be. But we know that like part of this will be kind of that give and take.
Yeah, and that was all my questions. I will say overall, I think this is fantastic. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can pick up some skills. I will say it was quite a while ago now, but I was the proud owner of a quarter machine at Phil the Barber's. For anyone that's been in town long enough, so it definitely teaches you some skills. So it's fantastic.
Thank you, Tim. Jerry.
First of all, thank you all for coming today. I know it's hard to come up in front of adults, especially strangers, and speak. So congrats, you guys. Great job, and thanks for doing that. Good luck at ICDC and States next year. And then for Miss U, I had a more technical question since I know that DECA is quite expensive. I was wondering if you have like any objectives on how much money you hope to raise from Spirit Box and how much of like the transportation costs and other additional costs that would be able to cover.
Yeah, gosh, I would like for this vending machine to be so successful that none of these kids have to pay any money, but that's not realistic. So just so you are all aware, kind of the costs this year alone were astronomical. Students had to pay their $20 International DECA dues, which is to be part of DECA International. That money goes to our district leaders, our state leaders, as well as a DECA aid, which is essentially to help students who need financial support. I also want to say is that those fees are usually waived for free and reduced lunch students. So whatever fundraising we do, we kind of try to waive those for any of those students. That was just to be part of the club through International DECA. Westborough requires $200 on top of that to be part of the DECA program because it is considered under the student activities fee $200. So then from there, to go to our first level of competition at districts is $50, and that pays for the Nichols College campus as well as food for those students as well as running the district competition itself. So just right out of the gate, kids are paying $270 who may not make it any further than that. Beyond that, states this year was $500. That is a 3-day, 2-night stay in Boston for competition. And from there, when we did internationals this year, it was $1,400 to fly down to Atlanta and stay for 5 days, 4 nights to compete. And like I said, the goal is that like our free and reduced lunch students are not paying those fees. And so we oftentimes will do reaching out to people in the community, and we have a bunch of businesses that have supported us in the past to help with, cut these costs. We also make sure that our chaperones and advisors don't have to pay for those fees, otherwise it just wouldn't be able to kind of be a viable program. I cannot necessarily afford that. And so we try to build that into the cost as well. The goal is that these kids don't have to pay these fees because I think the experience that they get is so much more valuable than like the cost of it. And I think for them, and they can probably speak as well, is that they've learned such good skills in order to be successful business people moving forward, but also successful leaders as well. And so my hope is that at some point, I won't have to ask them for all this money. I won't have to tell these parents that you're gonna maybe pay over $2,000 for your student to be part of this program. Any bit helps, really, and that's kind of the goal at the moment. Granted, we're only in our 5th year of the program, and this is my 3rd year, 4th year, next year, 4th year running it. So like I'm still learning different things and I'm still kind of going through those different processes, but that's kind of where we're at.
Thank you.
Can I just very quickly ask?
Yeah.
So appreciate that answer and a great question, Jerry. You mentioned a couple times there the students with like free or reduced lunch. Is that still a designation given the fact that now we have like all students get free lunch from what I understand? Or-
Yes, yes. I don't know what the official list is called, but
It's still a process that
helps students or families get access to kind of reduced rates on pretty much anything that we would do with student activities or sports fees. It is dependent on people filling out paperwork, so I think it tends in all districts to be underreported, and especially if we ever see some kind of backtracking on the universal free lunch, I think the burden will be on us to do very vigorous outreach at that point.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you to all the students. We love to have students at these meetings. We don't see them very often, so it's always a pleasure when you come and present and do it so well as you did. I'm very happy that this is, at first I thought it's going to be just a snack sales fundraiser, but this is much more. It's a learning experience, and I'm very pleased to hear, because I didn't see that in the slides when you mentioned collaboration potential with other teachers and using this as a use case in other areas, and I think that's fantastic. We already use a lot of time. I just want to ask two questions. Well, let me add one more thing too. I'm also very happy you're not asking for money, because that was something that I was worried about. But then I'm very impressed that you were on top of the funding. You never mentioned where you are with the fundraising. How far are you from the goal?
So this past fundraiser, where we just kind of started this process this year, so we did a little bit of fundraising this year. We're very far under the goal. I'd like to be a little bit higher, but we're probably around 4,000 right now out of the 16,000 that we'll probably need. We did apply for the WEF grant, but obviously that kind of got sidelined with all this other stuff, which is fine. But I think the hope is that, the kids will kind of, I'll have a new e-board team coming up, to be honest, at 7 p.m. And that team and I will work together to figure out what fundraising opportunities are we going to do, including a pickleball tournament in the future. We can do other different kinds of fundraising activities through, the Domino's fundraiser was fantastic. We raised $3,000 selling Domino's Slice the Price cards. And that was just telling the kids they needed to sell 2 cards each. And I'm sure some of you might have those, but so
Thank
really
you.
we kind of, that's where we're at.
And just one more question. I'm wondering, assuming you will eventually have it, what do you perceive as the highest risk? What could go wrong, and then what do you have in mind as a mitigation for that potential risk?
I think for us, and what probably the biggest risk will be, is that what if things just don't sell? We know that the kids, you should see the line of students that know where all of the snacks might be in the building, and be like, hey, do you have something? Hey, are you hungry? How many times do you guys ask your friends for snacks? All the time. And so, my hope is that if we start seeing a product fall off, that we would either remove it or sell it at a discounted price and replace it with a newer product. So hopefully that would kind of give them opportunities to figure out what is selling, what's not selling. Can we market that product better than this product? How do we do that? And that's kind of probably the biggest risk. Granted, there's probably a bigger risk more for the school because it's a vending machine. I don't want it to if it falls over and breaks, how are we going to replace it? That's a great question. Insurance. And how much is the insurance going to cost on something like that? I don't even know if we would ask for that, but that's kind of my thought process. It's there are risks smaller for our students and that process, and then more for the adults.
Thank you very much. And just one question to Allison, actually.
Sure.
Procedurally speaking, do we vote to approve this? How, or is this just a presentation for our information?
I think they're seeking approval, and so that's you can do that now. You can do that later this evening, or you could do it next meeting if you want some time.
Well, if it requires approval, I'm certainly in favor of it. So I move that we approve the program as presented tonight.
I'll second.
That's pretty easy.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 4-0-0. Motion moves. So thank you very much, and congratulations.
I'm glad you had 2 minutes before your officer decision, so this is exciting. I wish all of you well. Our next presentation this evening, we have Stephanie Nephew and Aubrey Zitzman, who are here on behalf of the K-3 Literacy Steering Committee. I don't know, Matt, if you wanted to say any words or before they get started.
Yeah, I just want to publicly thank both Aubrey and Stephanie for their leadership. It's a very large committee, again, made up of predominantly K-3 educators, but we since have expanded it to also include Mill Pond educators. And as you may recall, this is partially in response to some pending legislation regarding literacy at the early elementary level, but also just for our district to look for horizontal and vertical consistency of a curriculum program that is high quality and based on research-based instructional practices for literacy. So thank you.
Well, we have been here before to talk about literacy for a number of years. We have done literacy committee work. At least I've been part of it since 2018. And so we felt that it was important just because we've had committed teachers like working on developing our literacy programming for a number of years. So just sort of showcasing some of the work that we've done in the last number of years. We've really developed work to support some of the legislation that was centered around dyslexia. So incorporating a dyslexia screener. We brought in a specialist, Melissa Orkin, to work with us within that committee work. Later in that development, we incorporated From Phonics to Reading, which is a phonics program that we have incorporated K through 3. We've also done work centered around our assessment protocols in grades K through 6. So we've done a number of different iterations of that and sort of adjusting our assessment protocols to ensure that we're sort of meeting the needs of students, that we're tracking progress over time and providing intervention when needed. And some of that work is centered through incorporating DIBELS and communicating that information. Again, that's part of the dyslexia legislation, ensuring that we're communicating with families regarding the DIBELS screener. And most recently, the last time we came and presented, we talked about writing units that we've developed across the grades K through 6, really with the focus on developing consistency around our writing programming. And so this time around, we started a committee this year focusing really on K3, and it's in sort of response to a bill that is sort of in the process of being passed. It has not been passed yet, but a bill that would require a evidence-based curriculum that has been sort of selected by the state for our K through 3 programming. This is something that, you know, the entire state is sort of working on, because it is something that is fairly close to being passed, in which case we would need to have one of these selected programs sort of implemented within our schools. We are in the process of, the reason we brought a group together was to really sort of think about a very strategic process in selecting a program that would meet the needs of Westborough Public Schools.
So the work that we've done so far in regards to this committee, we established a literacy steering committee as soon as we heard that the legislation had potential to be passed. And it's made up of over 30 educators, K through 5. It includes district administration, including building principals, myself and Stephanie, Matt. It also includes classroom teachers, librarians, reading specialists, special educators, and ELL educators as well. And we've met monthly since February. And the primary goal of the first phase of this work was to look at the rubric that the state has used to analyze these curriculums, and make sure that the rubric reflected what we felt was important to us as a district in terms of literacy instruction. So trying to kind of balance are we meeting those state requirements and state mandates while also still incorporating things that are important to us in terms of literacy. We've also developed a timeline in order to achieve implementation for the 2027-2028 school year. The bill as it reads right now would require us to have a program implemented for fall of 2027. We've also sent out a summer memo to staff, which says this was kind of the first stage of our work that we've done, where we've revised a rubric, and we've also thought about a timeline. And the next phase of our work would be a smaller subcommittee getting together in the summer to use that rubric to analyze the 8 curriculums that have been approved by the state of Massachusetts, and to try to narrow that down to 2 or 3 options that we would like to explore deeper. So then the timeline from there would be that next fall, once the summer committee has analyzed the curriculums and narrowed it down, would be to communicate those 2 or 3 programs to all staff. We would use some of the district built-in professional development days to allow all staff members and stakeholders to explore those curriculums. We also would test materials. We will not be doing a full-scale pilot because of time constraints with needing to implement in 2027, but we will give teachers the opportunity to teach lessons and see what it feels like to actually take what's in the program and put it into practice with students in front of us. We'll also conduct site visits to districts who have been using these programs so that we can observe it in action and gather their feedback. And then we'll collect feedback from all educators around those different options, with the goal of selecting a curriculum in winter of 2026. So around December of next school year, we would like to say, this is the program that we would like to choose, and begin to purchase materials and be thinking about a professional development plan. And then winter and spring of 2027 would be fully about implementation plans. So thinking about the curriculum, getting into the nuts and bolts of how it works, and then looking at specific units and making plans for the 2027-2028 school year. I should say that some other work that's been done behind the scenes is Matt and I applied for a grant through the state. With this bill comes a substantial amount of funding. And so the Department of Education does have funds set aside. So we did apply for that, and that money could be used in a variety of different ways. It could be used to purchase the programs. It could be used to provide training for educators. It can be used to provide release time and substitute coverage so that we can do some of this work outside of those district professional development days.
So that is our quick synopsis of sort of what we've been working on this year. As you can see, we have listed the very large committee that has been part of this initial phase of this process. But ultimately, it is a good amount of work that is required to ensure that we select something that we feel like will really move our district forward. Within the literacy programming K through 3.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start with questions. Steve?
No, it is quite a big committee, and it's from everywhere in the system, so good luck.
Thank you for your presentation and for your work on this. First, just a comment and then a question. I really like how you're selecting 2 or 3 and I know you're not like road testing them or whatever we want to call it, because it's, I imagine, hard to implement curriculum change, and getting buy-in. I just think that's really, really smart, and I've been on the receiving end of having to implement curriculum changes that were just given to me. And this is a really nice way to do it. But I know it's extra work. So thank you for doing that. Did you get responses for your summer committee? Do you have?
Yes. We have over 20 people who have volunteered.
Oh, wonderful.
And so that includes educators grades K through 6, because although the legislation does not impact 4, 5, and 6 right now, we still want them to be a voice at the table and have some input into what's selected. And even to know what's coming their way.
That's great.
we have over 20 people.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Tim?
Thank you both so much for the presentation. A few questions. So I know it was said, talking about like the initial rubric that was created, and I believe the kind of vague phrasing, or my vague phrasing, to repeat it was about like discrepancies in state law versus some values and things that we thought were important in Westborough. I'm just curious, like, are there any examples that you can point to of something that like we really felt like wasn't included in the law but we want to hold on to?
So it's not quite the law, it's the rubric that the state uses in order to analyze the curriculum that they then will rate and say this is considered a high quality curriculum. And so, and I wouldn't even call it discrepancies, just things that we felt were very important to us that weren't necessarily reflected on there. So for example, diverse texts. So having a wide range of texts that we could flexibly choose from that represents a wide range of cultures and communities and all that. Another one was in terms of small group instruction. So teachers here are really talented at making data-based decisions for small group instruction in order to move students forward, and really want to make sure that they still have time for that within that literacy block. And that wasn't something that was necessarily reflected on the state's rubric. So it was something that we added, saying that this is an important practice for us. And so as we're looking through these programs, we want to make sure that that's still being addressed.
Another piece that came out was just a lot of language centered around universal design for learning. And it's something that we've been working on quite a bit in terms of our practices in school. And so when we're looking at a program, we want to make sure that it supports universal design for learning. And so we've strategically incorporated that into the rubric so that we're mindful in looking at it through that lens. And I also think that we also wanted to emphasize a little bit more some of the writing components. That was another area that we incorporated into the rubric, just to ensure that there's a robust sort of thought around writing instruction and the writing process. And that wasn't something that was as clear to us as we looked at the rubric, and wanted to make sure it stood out as we were analyzing the programs.
It's great to hear that background. I know that you talked about how there's like maybe roughly 8 programs out there currently, and that the plan is to whittle it down to a couple. I know that you said that the plan after that would be to potentially like go out and look at other districts where this is happening. I was just curious, like I know that the state legislation is relatively new. I'm sure these programs existed previously, but do we have a sense like we are confident that these programs are going to be happening in districts that Massachusetts will be able to tour?
Yeah, there is, the state runs pretty regular meetings where literacy leaders come together on a pretty regular basis to sort of talk about trends and things that are happening. And so we have an opportunity to meet with a lot of other literacy leaders across the state and sort of get a sense of where they're at within their curriculum work. I've also I've consulted in other districts to help them through this process. So I've had a sense of sort of what other schools have been sort of adopting and trying out. So we will definitely have plenty of schools that we'll be able to tap into to sort of go and see what's happening in other buildings. And I think that that's one of the things through this process with this committee, we were regularly asking them. They did a lot of exit tickets with us to provide feedback as we built sort of this plan. And one of the things that teachers really felt were important was to see the curriculum in action. I think sometimes you can look at these really the fancy boxes of materials, and then when you like actually use it and see how it looks and how kids interact with it, you see something different. And so it felt really important to be able to visit schools and to see the work in action so that we could better decide what is going to be the best fit for Westborough.
And I will say we started to see shifts in early literacy instruction around 2017, 2018. And it's just like with anything, we had a lot of districts and states that were really early adopters to these programs. We are in a very fortunate position where we took a minute and decided to see where everything landed. And now we do have a lot of surrounding districts that have been implementing these programs. Some of them are already on their second or third one because they haven't liked the ones that they tried to implement originally. So we do have a good sample to pull from and a lot of experienced districts around us to look at as resources.
That's awesome. And then one final question. I know we talked a little bit about grant and that there would be, some funding needed for this. I know that we, can't, it's probably a little hard to predict now, but like, do we have any sense of like if that grant funding is likely to cover the costs associated with this, or if it's also going to have an impact to the budget?
And take a stab at that one.
Sure. We did earmark a certain amount in our FY27 budget for the purpose of specifically purchasing some of these demo materials. The grant that we proposed was, it's called the PRISM 2 grant, and there's various pathways. I'm optimistic, and if it does provide funding, it would cover a significant amount of the cost to purchase a curriculum, pay for professional development, which I think is key. It's one thing to buy the materials. It's another thing to make sure that our teachers are adequately and sufficiently prepared to be knowledgeable about the use so that it's implemented with fidelity to help the students. So PD is going to be really important, making sure that, and that's a multi-year approach. It's not just a one and done. We're going to have to support teachers with this implementation really across the district and in all 3 elementary schools. And then for coaching as well. So, there's a variety of different funding vehicles. And I'm optimistic, but I don't want to celebrate until I see the grant award in the portal.
Don't spend it until you get it. Yeah.
Awesome. And no more questions. I just will quickly say, obviously with everything, it's a lot easier said than done. And I just, I know that you guys are doing the real work of this, so really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim. Jerry?
Questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think, Stephanie, this might be your last presentation.
I think it might be.
Congratulations on your new post, and I hope if we don't already, that we soon have a person replacing you in your role, and that person is involved in this process as well. I have a couple of questions. Will the rollout of this program, how will this rollout align with what we have in place, like DIBELS, I pronounce it, iReady, dyslexia screening, special education, MLL supports, existing intervention plans? Will we be changing other things later as a result of
So the
this
majority
rollout?
of the work that we're doing is going to stay the same. So the DIBELS as our universal screener is part of that dyslexia mandate, and that law is staying in place, and it is still one of the approved screeners. So we'll continue our work with that. We'll also continue our work for now with iReady as our assessment. I would imagine that we would continue to use that as a universal screener for 3 through 6 in terms of comprehension. We do currently have a phonics program that we're using in Tier 1, from phonics to reading. From our couple of slides back, the state is requiring that we have a curriculum that has high quality instructional materials for the big 5 areas of reading. So phonics to reading does address phonics, phonemic awareness, and fluency. And so what we're kind of hoping to supplement is that comprehension and vocabulary aspect. And the state does make it clear that if you do already have a program that is addressing those foundational skills, phonics, phonemic awareness, and fluency, you can continue to use that program in conjunction with another program, or you could use one single program to address all 5 domains. So for right now, we're operating under the assumption that we are maintaining our work with phonics to reading, but there is the possibility that there might be a shift there as well.
Many of the programs provide sort of a holistic approach. They have all components, but you can often purchase the comprehension component separately from the phonics program. So there are a number of schools that have chosen to do that. They've kept their phonics program that they had been using, and they're purchasing the comprehension program to supplement that. So,
So it can be
there's
tailored.
a couple choices that we will need to make when we do this. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And just one more question. I don't have educational background, and I always struggle with this because this is, in some way, this is very technical in your area of expertise, and you have a large committee of people who know this subject very well. How can we as a school committee understand that the implementation of this is successful? In maybe not today, but maybe in 3 or 4 years, what can we as school committee, glean from Are there metrics that you're collecting that we can look back and say, you know, we implemented this new program and it has been successful, or maybe it hasn't?
So that's actually part of the bill, is there's requirements around assessments and scores that will need to be reported to the state in order to determine the effectiveness of whatever program is being used. So I assume that we can use that same set of data and share it with school committee, as well as our DIBELS data would hopefully continue to be strong, because it is strong across the K-3 buildings, especially as we enter into the year. There's some real growth and strong teaching and learning that's happening in literacy, and we can continue to use iReady and look at the growth there. But there will be some state mandated measures that will need to be reported that I assume can be translated to presenting to school committee and to the public, to show that the program is effective.
That would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys are great.
Okay. I think one more under your update, Allison.
Yeah, kind of last update from me, and Meg Garvey is here for this one. This is, you know, she's got a few slides here, but really this relates to a request to for a policy change, and this would bring our policy around timeout, seclusion, restraint of students into alignment with new state regulations that have come out. So Meg's got a quick overview of what that all means for you.
Hi, everybody. I just have a quick overview of some of the changes that we have in our timeout and seclusion regulations that go into effect on August 17th. So last June, the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education voted to amend the regulations for timeout practices. We previously had followed all of the rulings around that in our district, and had really great kind of policy and practice in our buildings. But now we need to make a shift. And the reason why they decided to do that was that they wanted the definition to more closely align with the Office of Civil Rights definition. And they also felt like in some places it was not providing students with equitable access to learning environments, particularly in certain subgroups. So they amended the regulations, and I'm just gonna go over some of the highlights for you, and then if you have questions on any of the things that we're thinking about as far as implementation, I'm happy to answer that. Oh, I have this. Sorry. So no, we're too far. Okay, there we go. So the first thing they did was they updated our definitions. So they updated the definition of seclusion to align it with the Federal Office for Civil Rights standard, and they also updated the timeout definition. And they clarified that to specify an unlocked setting in which a student is permitted to leave. Prior to that, there was no definition as far as whether the setting was locked or unlocked, or whether the student was permitted to leave. So they clarified that.
Can I jump in for just a second? I want to, just for anybody who's viewing who may not be familiar with this kind of arena, timeout is non-punitive. It's really a safety measure. So I think when, if you hear that term and you're not familiar with the school environment, you may think about kind of old school parenting strategies, right? Where timeout is something that you're doing to do behavior management with your child. This is a different thing. And so I wanted to make sure that's really clear.
I think the definition is clearly aimed at trying to stop that thought, it being
exactly.
in prison.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And the changes are kind of further in that line of thinking, right?
They've also changed what the room requirements are as far as lighting and ventilation, heating, cooling. We in our district have a few timeout rooms. We don't have many, and they're usually in our more specialized programs. And again, it's part of kind of a planned strategy for regulation for students. It's never punitive, to Allison's point. The seclusion criteria was also clarified. So the seclusion is when the student may not be allowed to leave, and it's only if there's an imminent threat. It's only in an emergency if someone is going to get hurt. And they've really clarified that for us, what that means, what that looks like, what that is not. They've also updated some of the safeguards and the reporting for that. So things that we have to have in place to use emergency seclusion with a student have changed. Things that have to happen after, if we have to use that, also have changed. So again, the new definition of timeout is in an unlocked setting where the student is permitted to leave, and before there was not that guidance around that. And, you know, again, to Allison's point, it's a voluntary calming strategy. It is a strategy that is used. A lot of the classrooms have kind of timeout or quiet, you know, areas that students will go to calm. We teach students to use that as a strategy, and that is also what, you know, what the rooms might be used, like I said, in some of the more specialized programs. It's a behavioral support strategy. It's something that's supposed to be temporary, and as soon as a student is calm, they, you know, are also they're always able to leave, but that process should end. A staff needs to be with them all the time. And we also have documentation of when that happens. The definition of seclusion is when it's an involuntary confinement and when a student is alone in a room and they are not permitted to leave. It's prohibited in public education except as a last resort when there's an imminent threat of assault or serious physical harm. This obviously is a very rare occasion. It's a very rare occasion in Westborough. It does happen occasionally, and there are times when that is used to keep everyone safe, to keep the students safe, to keep the staff safe. But there are also, they've put in some safeguards, some steps that we need to take in order to use that as a strategy. And to clarify, it can never be used as a punitive strategy. It can never be used as part of a behavioral plan. It is only used in an emergency. So they've kind of defined for us the reasonable threat or imminent threat, and they say if it's serious physical harm, and they've aligned with the IDEA's definition. There's a substantial risk of death, extreme physical pain, disfigurement, loss of a bodily member, organ, or mental faculty. So that is something that, like, in that moment, a student is going to hurt somebody, and it can't be a threat of it. It can't be oh, he looks like maybe he is going to. It is something that is escalating to the point where someone is going to get hurt. But there are still, again, some safeguards that we have to take before we do that, and they call them the preconditions. We have to have permission. We have to have parent permission. We have to have permission from a licensed physician. We have to have permission from a licensed mental health professional. Principal written approval, and staff that is trained in behavioral alternatives. I think one of the keys is that we always put into place all of the things that we do to stop that escalation of any kind of situation. I think our staff in Westborough is extremely highly trained in a lot of de-escalation techniques and are used to using that with students. And so we want to make sure that our staff is trained and that all of those preconditions are taken into account. If we think that a student, based on their, you know, a lot of times it's based on their disability, it's not always, that might be something that we may need to use at some point, we will work to have those preconditions in place, again, to keep everyone safe. During a seclusion, the staff is always there to observe and are readily available to the student. And as soon as the threat is over, that is over. And it is never a punishment. Again, it's only used for safety. We also have to make sure that the room meets those same safety requirements that we talked about in timeout. Afterwards, parents are notified verbally and in writing. The principal's notified. If it goes past 30 minutes, the principal or another administrator has to be notified. And then there's a written report, as well as one of the things our teams always do is they always kind of talk about things afterwards to see how things went, could they have done things differently. If it becomes a pattern, then that's something that then we start to look at, are there other things? So in order to determine that, we look at data regularly, and then we also have to report that to DESE.
That's the last slide, thank you.
That's the last slide. Okay, yeah, so that is the last slide.
Thank you very much.
It was a quick, so, questions?
Yes, Steve.
No, it's a long read, that's for sure. Other than that, I have no questions.
This
But
was
I-
the shortened version.
Yeah, but I do understand the true definitions of each one of these words, and which obviously is direction to the staff as to how to deal with it, not only for the school's liability, but for the students' benefit as well.
Thank you, Jay.
So I'm, first of all, thank you. And I'm sure this was a ton of work. And I think it's going to be a lot of work, it seems like. So that's what I'm trying to understand. So the preconditions, I'm having a hard time like understanding how we would have those in place. Because to me, emergency seclusion, the first time it happens, it's probably unexpected, right?
Yeah.
So we would not meet those preconditions just because
We didn't know.
can't. Yeah, we can't be expected
I
to.
would, yeah, I think that's a good point, Jane. I would say for the vast majority of our students, who probably are in more specialized programming, there is probably some sort of a pattern based on the impact of their disability, that they become dysregulated, and at times that transitions into something that could become physical. So there are students that we do know that we would want to preemptively try and get these permissions in place in order to be able to keep everyone safe. We have had instances of, hair pulls and scratches and bites and, furniture being thrown. It does not happen often, but we do want to make sure that we have things in place to keep everybody safe in that regard. So there are times where it might be an emergency and we wouldn't. You are correct. And then we would have to look at other options. But there is, for the students that we kind of know that this might be something that we need to do, we will be working kind of to preemptively get all of these things into place.
But there is the flexibility for if someone doesn't have the preconditions in place and they are posing an imminent threat, that,
yeah, we would have to use we would have to do other things at that point. And I think those are the things that we have. We have safety care trained staff in every building, multiple ones. We have school resource officer. We have other means to keep everybody safe. So that's some of the work that we need to do with our school-based teams to kind of understand what all of our options are and what things we would put into place. Because ultimately, keeping everyone safe is one of the most important things we're doing. So.
okay. And this is, we are being told we have to do this, right? We didn't develop these.
No.
1 through 4.
Correct.
Right? This is us implementing a law.
That is correct.
Okay. That has changed.
Correct.
Okay. So I assume too, the new educational support professional, like different levels that we
The tier
will
3.
help with this, right? Because
Yeah,
we'll
most
have
of those
specially trained.
Yes, yeah, most of those, if not all, will be safety care trained because they will work with our higher needs students. So those typically are the ones that are trained. And we also have a variety of other staff in buildings that can, come in case of an emergency.
Great. My only concern is the other things that we have to use in the case where we don't have these preconditions met could be pretty traumatizing to a student.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, and so that's the one thing that I thought I was misunderstanding this slide, but I wasn't. And so I don't know what the, but I'm sure you're aware of that. And to get a resource officer involved, that's like the police, right? That's could be very traumatizing to a student.
Correct.
And the other students around them.
Correct.
I do think the legislation came, from overuse of some practices, which is not the case here. And so, I think we are complying with legislation that's really designed for some practices that haven't been the case here. And so it's going to, I think the good news is we have an outstanding team. We're well trained. Folks are kind of used to managing crisis situations really thoughtfully in a way that's very student-centered. So I'm confident they're going to keep doing exactly that. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Tim.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Just a few questions. My first is, I'm curious, do you see like this change in policy having any impact on the frequency that we'd be using seclusion in Westborough?
The change in policy, I mean, we don't use it often. Like I would say, again, we use it in this way only if it's kind of imminent harm, that there's gonna be physical harm to somebody. And so it's mostly we use timeout spaces, and we use that as part of, taught strategies for students for de-escalation or, or emotional regulation. So, I don't see it as being much different than what we're doing now. I think probably the instances Jane brought up are the ones that we're really going to have to kind of problem solve.
Yeah, which,
the most.
and, I just have two other quick questions, and both I'm kind of based on Jane's. I'm not sure if this is even necessarily worth talking about, if you think there's any possibility that a parent would essentially deny the consent to have this done, but if that were to be the case, like if a parent was like, absolutely not, like I'm not consenting to this, like, do we have a sense of what that would look like? I know we talked a little bit about the school resource officer, but like, is there a plan in place?
I think, we would probably rely on if it was a safety issue, like I said, our priority is to keep students safe and staff safe. So we would probably rely on our safety care trained staff. And at times, that does include a physical management component, which we use very infrequently here. But that is something that, in order to keep people safe, we would do if we needed to do. And we have very well-trained staff in that regard. So, that would be, which, I think is, like I said, is probably the concern that Jane raised, and that is something that is on, all of our minds. But again, we are lucky that it does not happen here frequently. So that's what some of the things that we'll be problem solving as teams, definitely.
Yeah. And then just last question, I know you mentioned this a little bit with Jane and just there as well about the trained staff, and I apologize if I missed this, but like, is there retraining that's going to need to be done as well, or?
They'll be training in all of these new regulations, and our safety care trained staff gets trained I have my trainer, every 2 years. Do I have that? One every year. Yeah, so they go through full training, and then they go through kind of touch-up training. So they're Kim is great about monitoring all that and scheduling, so everybody gets updated when they need to, because they cannot use safety care techniques unless they are fully trained.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, Tim. Jerry.
No questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Meg. We're running a little bit late with our agenda. I'll just ask one question.
Sure.
Regarding the seclusion and the timeout spaces. Do we have a seclusion and a separate timeout space at every building in the district? And for all those timeout spaces, have we now under this new regulation, have we reviewed if there's spaces that are continuously observed, that it's always unlocked, that student is permitted to leave? Have we done a review of these spaces?
So that's, we've started that process. We do have maybe one timeout. We've always called it timeout. We've never referred to it as seclusion. We call it a timeout or a calming space. And we probably have one in each building. At our last review, Desi did give us some suggestions for how to, add some mirrors and things like that if we did need to shut the door. Now, with the new law, what we will most likely be doing in those spaces is removing the doors so that they can't be shut. And all of the spaces are always kind of monitored for safety and making sure that there's nothing in there that is dangerous. Their students have always been monitored. That's always been our practice. And we always, document when students spend time in there, and if they go past a certain time, an administrator's called, things like that. So a lot of these practices we kind of have in place. I think the change will be that, again, when students, might be getting physical, we can no longer shut that door without permission. So, what we'll probably be doing is taking the doors off. We have a checklist that we've created to go through all of the spaces, and then we also have to make a plan with facilities to have that regularly checked as part of the custodial responsibilities. So that is kind of all things that will be in place for September.
Thank you. Any other questions? Good. Thank you very much, Meg. Okay, that concludes our long superintendent's update
It
today.
is, it is. So I had linked the red line of this policy and then with the hope that we can vote that in the next meeting. So we'll have it in place for the fall and be in keeping with the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda is citizens' request. Is there anyone here that would like to speak? No, I don't see anyone. So we move on to the next one, discussion. So the first item on the agenda is the current business, with the action to approve the request for proposals for schools town operational efficiency study. Do I have a motion for the action?
So move.
Second.
Steve, would you mind reading the full motion?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to approve the request for proposals for the town school and town efficiency studies, subject to any changes made by town council deemed to be non-substantive by the town manager and the school committee chair.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there discussion? No questions. I just have one question, Allison. If
Sure.
you could speak to that one change about
The
the.
procurement officer versus that one. Yes. So this is reviewed by town council who determined initially we'd had the town manager's role was going to be to appoint the committee that would screen proposals and screen the candidates for this project. And according to the law, it has to be the procurement officer that does that. That's one of the more sort of substantial changes there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 400, the motion passes. Thank you very much.
We're
The
gonna, I'm making a request to have us pass over the vehicle purchase approval, just so we can get a few more questions answered in advance for the committee.
Yes. Yeah, I was actually going to say, I apologize for the change in the agenda. We're going to pass over that item. And so we move on to the next one, which is the approval of the school committee meeting calendar for 26-27. Do you want to present it, Allison?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about this. This is a conversation, kind of growing out of a conversation that the chair and I had around meetings. And there's sort of two things I think that are noteworthy. We tried to sort of follow, I think, a drumbeat of meetings that's similar to what we had this year, with a couple exceptions. One is that there's an interest in taking the show on the road a little bit. You know, one of the things we've noted is that we'd like to see more participation from parents, see more engagement of the different schools in the meetings. And one way of doing that is going out to the people so that they can do that. And so if there's interest in that, I don't think we need to make that as a hard and fast decision, but I wanted to sort of note that is a hope and plan for next year. But for now, noticing the dates themselves, they are these dates that I outlined in bold here. A second request here is around school committee retreat, which we have done, I think, traditionally right the end of the first week of school. And I'm making the request, if people are amenable, and if you're not, I understand, because the summer is the summer, of backing that up to the end of August in order to kind of have a little more time and space to focus with you on some strategic priorities before welcoming everybody back. So those are kind of proposed things. And then it's up to you to, I'll discuss and we'll make changes as needed.
Thank you. Yeah, it was one of my wishes to have a bit of a traveling school committee next year and pay some more attention to specific buildings and the parent groups at each building. So I'm happy to see that the draft has this in place.
I have a comment on that.
Yes.
As we know, the meetings in this room or in the Great Hall across the street are televised. I don't believe we have the ability, maybe Westborough TV can speak to that, but to the extent that they would be dark, i.e. Eventually they would be televised, but only after the fact, by virtue of, a portable camera and being televised thereafter, but they wouldn't be live. And I would think that maybe we want to try to figure out how to make them live, because I don't think they'll be as powerful. I.e., you go into the building, you talk to the people who are physically there, which might be, let's hope 10 people. But the dialogue back and forth between those who ask questions and the public at large, I think is an important thing to be able to do. But I believe there's 8 on-the-road meetings, which are fine. I think it's a great idea. As a matter of fact, I think Yakub might have suggested that. So I think that's the thing we should work on, to make sure that there is a capability for it to be a live meeting rather than televised at some after point.
As it so happens, I've got Karen Henderson in the next room, who's sort of eyeballing me through the door. So she may be able to speak to Westborough TV's capacity to do that, either now or in the future. Thank you for the impromptu statement.
It's Karen Henderson. I'm with Westborough TV. If I can, through the chair, address the committee.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
okay.
Yes.
Sorry, no, I'm not scripted for that. So Steve pointed out what would be kind of my concern. I love the idea of taking on the road. I love the idea of engaging more people. Having served on a lot of those parent groups, I know that that would be a big draw to get parents at those meetings. So I see a lot of positives there. From our perspective for Westborough TV, my concern would be, we would have to be on the road. Could we go live? Which is sometimes a challenge. The other thing would be just the audio, and trying to pick everyone up can be difficult. So that would be something we probably would need to discuss a little bit more. Definitely have some hesitation there.
Could we create the scenario like we have at town meeting with mics in a couple of places? Maybe not as convenient as having the Boy Scouts deliver a microphone, but at least it gets more people in the audio of the program.
Right, so definitely there's the concern about the audience, and then if you have presentations at those meetings, how we're, getting that presentation. I have to, this is the first I was hearing about it, so I have to think through that a little bit, but, obviously we broadcast from Gibbons and from Mill Pond and from the high school, so we're familiar with being there, but it would definitely be, one of the concerns with audio is at some of the schools you might have audience facing you this way, they're talking, you're trying to get their audio, you're trying to get your audio. How bad it was even just being in Forbes. Audio is a problem, and just by the way, it's not just a problem for you or for Westborough TV. You'll see a lot of people on TV that are being interviewed. We're even talking about like presidential debates, and you'll note that they have multiple microphones attached to their lapel because audio just is flaky and difficult. So that's not an us problem. That's an everywhere problem. So I would just want to think through that a little bit. I would hope before you vote on it, and talk with my team about whether or not microphones would do it, how we'd set up mics so people could hear you. So something to consider.
Obviously, the list of where we do it can change since the boxes represent the day, but
that's exactly
obviously
my
there's
point.
a lot of work to be done to make it quality effort in terms of what we wanted to do. So
Yeah, so that'll be actually my suggestion. Thank you for chiming in. I do expect technical challenges, and maybe some of this will not be able to be implemented. But I think the vote today, if we agree to vote, will be on the dates, not necessarily on the locations, and then we can work with what we can do later on and adjust the locations if we need to.
Absolutely. Of course, we're always happy to do that. And like I said, I really support the concept behind it of trying to bring in more people into the process. That's what we're all about at Westborough TV. I'm a strong believer. So we'd be happy to work with you on that. And, maybe every place would work out, or maybe, we could do it at these places, but not these couple. But I'm happy to work with superintendent and with you on trying to figure that out in my team.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I would also want to add just to give the full credit to one of the residents, Marshall Preston. I think he was the one that actually brought this idea to me, and I liked it right away. And credits to him for bringing this up. Okay, so if we're okay with voting on this, then I would make a motion that we approve the dates of the meetings for the next year's school calendar for the school committee, with the possibility of changing locations for each meeting. Do I have a second? I'm sorry.
So I do just have one comment that certainly understand, Allison, what you're saying in terms of buying us more lead time regarding the retreat. I will say it's not for vacation purposes, but those dates for me would be a little difficult. And so like the following week would be a lot more easier in my schedule. I'm not sure how the committee feels about that, but that was my only note.
Can we leave the discussion of when the retreat would be until we can work it out between,
Sure.
members of the committee?
Sure, we could circulate a poll and sort of do it that way and vote the rest of the dates
Yeah.
for now.
Well, or the same
Well-
thing,
Yeah.
that we would have a retreat in the beginning of the year, I think is sufficient, and we'll work out when exactly.
Yeah.
So I would move it on that basis,
But now I'm thinking,
as you did.
Yes, but perhaps since Sarah is not here, and she might also want to chime in, perhaps we should, if we can, do we have time to postpone this vote until next meeting?
Yeah,
Maybe.
absolutely. I think there's
Since there
no-
are additional questions, maybe we can learn something more about from Westborough TV and as well in that time.
Sure, yeah.
Would that be okay? Then I withdraw my motion. Okay, thank you. Finally, we're moving to the last action item, presentation of the decarbonization roadmap by the Sustainable Westborough.
Good evening, I'm Peter Flynn, 3 Crown Ridge Road. I'm Chair of Sustainable Westborough. With me tonight is Jeff Levine, the Vice Chair of the committee, Pete Dunbeck, a committee member who actually has led work on the development of the decarbonization roadmap over the last 2 years, and Lila Ahmed, the Town Sustainability Coordinator. We appreciate the opportunity to present to you this evening. Lila has prepared the presentation. She will make the presentation, and then we're all available to help answer any questions that the committee may have. So I'll turn it over to Lila Ahmed.
Thank you.
You wanted to plug yours in instead?
Just in case we need a plug.
Okay. Yeah, this will take just a sec to swap out.
Sorry. Perfect.
Yeah, I think the speakers are in the dark when we don't have the lights on in the room, on television. Obviously, I meant to ask Karen that. There we go.
There we go.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all again. My name is Lila Ahmed. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator. I'll keep this brief and to the point and answer any questions at the end of the presentation. So very quickly, this is just the agenda for the presentation. I hope you all have had the chance to somewhat familiarize yourself with the document that was distributed prior, but I hope this presentation solidifies some of the information that was in there and helps provide a strong foundation to understanding the document that we hope to adopt. So this is the Climate Leader Community Checklist, which is a framework that was developed by the Department of Energy Resources to help municipalities take measurable steps towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So as you can see, we've completed all the other steps besides the very last one, which is why I'm here tonight, which is the decarbonization roadmap. We recently adopted the new energy code and adopted the zero emission vehicle policy. And this is really the last step we have to start applying for that climate leader application. I also wanted to highlight that we became a green community in 2018, and since then, Westborough has received $657,000 in grant funding, and also to highlight that this past fall, we received a green community competitive grant for 2 transformers, one at Mill Pond School and one at the Westborough High School. And those will help be replacing in a more efficient manner, and we hope that that project will be completed this summer by hopefully end of July. So that's very exciting. So the importance of becoming a climate leader community.
On the state level, Massachusetts climate goals ultimately depend on strong municipal action by Westborough and other communities like us, as we do contribute to the larger picture of what the state is trying to complete with their climate action plan. But the importance specifically to Westborough is that by pursuing this designation, Westborough would be formally recognized for its commitment to climate action and emission reduction. And with that all, there comes a nice financial benefit, of course. We would be in a position as a town to qualify for grants to help support a smooth transition to net zero in the most cost-effective way that we will be able to. And I'd also like to highlight that as of March of 2026, there have been 35 different communities in Massachusetts that have become a climate leader community. So Westborough could be added to that as a community taking proactive steps towards emission reduction and long-term sustainability goals. So what is this decarbonization roadmap? Just an overview quickly of what it is. It's a long-term planning guide, really, of leading up to the next 25 years as we approach the 2050 goals of net zero and everything. So we're focusing on strategies for the municipal and school buildings, on how we can electrify and work on energy efficiency projects for those buildings, as well as municipal and school vehicles, so fleet transitions and planning, but that's all under our ZEV First policy. There are different components of this roadmap, so things in it can consist of things like emission inventory of buildings, equipment replacement planning, cost-effective electrification, so what things could possibly cost us. And of course, all of this is in line with the capital planning and capital projects. And most importantly, I want to point out this is a non-binding document. Committees retain all existing fiscal authority. It's a guide to help us figure out better ways to spend our money, not forcing any money to be spent. Yeah, just want to make that clear. This is a kind of pie chart graphic that depicts Westborough's fiscal year 2022 baseline emissions. So in orange, we can see the vehicle portion, which we're just going to kind of separate from the mix because we're focusing just on buildings with this decarb roadmap. And we can see that the total amount of metric tons of carbon dioxide, what equivalent is 2,733, with DPW facilities contributing 5%, town buildings contributing 11%, and school buildings contributing 48%. And you can see the red ring around that is for the total buildings of 64%. So the schools are contributing the most out of that, but I'll get into that reasons for why on the next slide. So just focusing just on buildings, we can see on-site emissions from buildings, again, from the baseline year of fiscal year 2022. And up at the top, we have the schools contributing 75.6%, and the largest building obviously being the high school, and the town focus buildings being 18.8%, so things like the fire station, smaller facilities here in town, and then other small buildings and pumps only contributing about 5.6%. Now, this is not really surprising at all because our schools are the largest buildings in our town and get used very often and are huge energy users. And so it's not surprising at all. But I'd also like to point out that Fales and Hastings, they have little stars next to them, that the Fales data that we used in this roadmap was from the old Fales building, not the new one. So if we had used current data, that would have shown nothing because on-site emissions at Fales are 0. And Hastings right now, on-site emissions are 0 also. So that's why you see nothing showing up there. So the zero over time approach, or the net zero over time approach, was designed by the Rocky Mountain Institute as a strategic phased roadmap design to achieve net zero carbon over a prolonged period. So rather than mandating immediate replacement, it aligns emission reduction projects with natural capital cycles and equipment lifespans. So things that could occur, such as trigger points. So we are not forcing an improvement to be made or an adjustment to be made when it doesn't make sense. We look to see when a trigger point could occur. And examples of that could be when equipment fails, or when buildings are renovated, or systems are scheduled to be replaced. So those would be something we'd look to as an opportunity to electrify rather than rushing into something before possibly the end of life of the equipment could be happening. So therefore, we're not trying to do any early replacement of functioning equipment. That's not required at all. And that's why we're leaning on this zero overtime approach. And then I'd also like to point out the little figure here on the left, the calendar that illustrates how real planned school capital projects, so these are all, it's a little image, the circles are representing different improvements that were actually taken out of the schools this year's 5-year capital plan, so from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 29, of things that were stated that were going to possibly be replaced. And how we can look at that and see, well, out of here, if any of these choose to get done during those 5 years, is there an opportunity to possibly electrify or make it a cost-effective measure that also reaches our sustainable goals? For example, in the roadmap, Armstrong's HVAC replacement date is anticipated for needing to be replaced by 2030. So that could be an opportunity to see if it's beneficial in the moment and if grants are available to electrify that type of replacement. So things like that is how we're approaching this zero over time when it makes sense and not rushing into this all at once. So once this roadmap gets approved, we're able to finally apply for the Climate Leader program. And within the Climate Leader program, there are 2 main grants that we could apply for, in total allowing us to get about $1 million in funding. So first we have the technical support grant, and that grant's main focus is really to help with project feasibility. We'd be able to earn up to $150,000, and that type of grant is geared towards engineering studies and design plans and helping you gear up towards figuring out like how can we approach a larger project and to apply for. So it really helps takes project ideas and turns them into ready projects. I'm using the example of if you want to replace a boiler in a school and you need to maybe do an audit of that boiler to figure out what infrastructure needs to change within the school to make that happen. What's the cost going to be compared to like different other structures of replacing the same version or something else or a hybrid version. This type of grant would be helpful to understand that better before going into the much more expensive or much more larger grant, which is the Decarbonization Accelerator Grant. So that one is a much larger one where you can get up to $1 million with the needed 10% local match. And the goal of this accelerator grant is to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This can be used for one large project or it can be used for a bunch of combined smaller projects. And this would fund things like heat pumps or broader building electrification, different solar and battery storage at schools, and bigger energy efficiency upgrades as well. And then I'd also like to point out that designated green communities like we are right now that become a climate leader community would be considered to be specially eligible, which would allow us to maximize our already available green community funding for a broader amount of projects we could apply that towards. And also we would have enhanced funding on specific projects within that. So for example, in the competitive grant funding opportunities we have right now, you could apply that towards buying an electric vehicle. That money becomes double what it already is right now if we become a climate leader. And that's just one of the examples of how being specially eligible enhances the program we are already in, which I think is an added bonus. So besides those 2 funding sources, the roadmap illustrates a bunch of other things that need to get done before 2050 or things that we recommend could get done. But obviously there needs to be other sources of money to come in. And I'm sure you guys are already aware of many of the school grant funds and others that exist besides these 2, but I just wanted to highlight the Green School Works grant and the MSBA grant. Both of these grants help fund projects that help mitigate the impacts of climate change or fund projects like huge heat pump conversions and other efficiency upgrades. And something also to point out is that these funding opportunities are going already in the direction of decarbonization. So being able to stack the Climate Leader grant of $1 million with other grants that the schools may be already applying towards would just be a better way to also optimize our funding opportunities and apply more money to projects schools are already trying to apply for. So very quickly, this is just a timeline schematic of the next steps, but before I get into that, I just want to say that the adoption of this roadmap is just a very important final step in accessing the funding opportunities for future projects. And by better understanding building energy use, emissions, and equipment replacement timelines, the town can plan realistically and in a well-supported way to access these projects and reduce emissions. So just to kind of figure out this timeline here we are in May and June, where we're coming to the school committee to present and look for a vote around this time. And earlier or later this summer, looking to present to the select board a similar presentation and ask for their vote. And once this is approved by both committees at some point, the earliest deadline we see, or earliest submission date for submitting our application is in December. There is one in June, but I think it makes the most sense to aim for a December due date. So we would prepare and submit our Climate Leader Program application. And once accepted, then we would become eligible to apply for those 2 grants I was speaking about. So the next deadline for the Climate Leader Technical Support Grant, which it's recommended to apply for that one first and complete that one first. That one would be in May of 2027. And then later on, applying for the $1 million decarbonization accelerator grant. And those deadlines are August of 27 or February of 2028. So myself, the sustainability coordinator, will oversee and help implement the roadmap and provide ongoing updates to both the school committee and the select board as projects and initiatives progress. And the sooner that we're able to apply for this program, the sooner we're able to get funding and help school projects progress. I'll open it to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we have some questions. Let's start with Steve.
Well, actually, I think I don't have any questions on the program. It seems to be laid out logically. All the yellow boxes were things that were my criticism in the past, which most of them are now embedded in the program from a process point of view. But seems to me asking for a grant when at this time we don't know what it's for, I think we need to do a little more study on what things are on the table, let's say from the school committee anyway, to get done. Obviously, we have our own agenda going forward, and we have an internal committee now in regards to this and other things as far as capital plans. But, you know, to the extent that you know what grant is out there to request, whether or not there's a need by the school committee for it, I think is what we need to do to start first. But other than that, you know, I think the logic to the program is fine. You know, the concept embedded in it, and it's been my gripe from the beginning, is let's not do something because the state will give us money. Let's do it because it makes sense to do it at the time that we need it. The second part is that, if my memory serves correctly, of the $600 and something thousand that the town received, a good, at least half of it was for improvements, if you will, in the school department. And of that, we had 30% matching funds. So again, if all this comes as the cart before the horse, if we don't have the ability from a financing point of view to pay for this stuff before it's planned to be an impact, which was the case in the 300 grand matching fund program, it's a difficult problem for the school committee. So there are other issues rather than nonchalance. We get money from the state. We get money from the state when we do what they ask and when we match the funds. So my sensitivity to that is to know what the impact's going to be. If, on the other hand, the town meeting wants to put the money on the table as a matching fund, so be it. We be in the benefit, whether it be the town or whether it be the school department. But a priori saying we want to get this money because it's, quote, free. Nothing's free in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, number one. But number two, it has to go in balance with whatever the school committee's budget is for that particular year.
Mhm.
So with those caveats, I'm in favor of the program as outlined. And as long as we can work out the rest of those glitches, we'll all benefit from the program.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Jane?
Thank you for the presentation. You are a really good presenter and very clear. So,
Thank you.
Product of the Westborough Public Schools, right?
Really.
So, I appreciated looking through this in advance and the other document that you sent. So, if I just want to make sure I understand, it's similar to the electric vehicle policy that this is we're saying that we would consider alternate options.
Correct.
We're not, there's no obligation, and we still have, so similar to the electric vehicle.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And are there reporting, like with the electric vehicle, we had some, I know it was minor, but reporting responsibilities when we chose not to buy an electric vehicle? Is it similar here? Like if we're replacing a chiller or whatever the other things were, do we have to explain why we chose one type versus another?
I have not been told by my contact with the state that that's needed.
We wouldn't replace the chiller in this program. It would be something different.
Or, yeah, I just was using.
Right, but I don't think there'd be needed, if you read some of the finer details, it says like a chiller replacement by 2030 is recommended, possibly, but also by 2045 is fine. So if replacement at the time only makes sense to replace with the same type of equipment, that's also stated sort of and laid out in some of the detailed writing of each school and each equipment. And to my understanding, you don't need to state why you're choosing not to. It's more of just like in the time from now to 25 years from now, if it doesn't make sense in 5 years, but maybe 10 years or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jane. Tim?
Sure. No more questions. I mean, I will say thank you so much to the committee. I am the liaison to Sustainable Westborough, and I know all the work that went into the decarb roadmap and to this presentation. Lila, I thought you did a fantastic job as well. No real question. I guess the only thing I would say is just a clarification because, as Steve said, and you as well, Jane, we did largely go through this conversation already with the ZEV policy not long ago. It's just that, and I'm maybe anticipating one of your questions, Jakub, around the timeline and being a little further out, that this grant funding, I believe that, the conversation before was around like this being already allocated in state funds and that they'd already set the money aside. I believe it's actually almost more secure if possible in that a lot of this money actually comes from like incentive programs created for the utility companies and different, players in that space. And so like it is from them essentially like, it's more complicated than we need to go into now, but essentially, like, it is a pretty fair bet to say that money will be there, next year when we're applying for it. So.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you, Tim. Jerry?
No questions.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation again, and I want to say thank you to your committee in general for being very accommodating with the schedule and sending the materials ahead of time, presentation well ahead of time, so we had a chance to get familiar with that.
Of course.
I just want to have it on record and make sure that that we're all on the same page. That we are, I think we're going to vote at the next meeting. I'd like to give Sarah a chance to ask her questions as well. But
that's fine.
This is a non-binding roadmap. It's more of a framework and an opportunity for us to seek funding. But the proposed strategy that you have in your report under every building, that's just a suggestion from your committee to the town. But it's not something that we are bound by.
No forcing, nothing binding, no commitment. It's a helpful guiding document, and it's my job to help communicate some of these recommendations when I see it necessary, but no forcing of any sort involved.
Thank you. So could you, let's say we have this plan approved by both boards and we qualify and we get elected and we get certified as the climate leader town. How would it work in practice? So let's say we have a failing chiller at Mill Pond, and in 2 years, what would be that? How do you see this working in practice?
It's a great question. I try to have very consistent communication with school facilities all the time. They're involved in a bunch of my meetings with utilities, so National Grid and Eversource, and our state representative for the Department of Energy Resources. So we're all on the same page when it comes to what are the school needs right now. And I'm sort of their middle person to communicate that with our utilities and be like, that might be a great opportunity. And yes, the incentives are great, but our school department doesn't need that right now. What they do want and what they do need and what's in their capital plan for this year and in their budget is this. And then we can try to combine those efforts so that we're actually doing what the school needs in the moment and not preemptively getting ahead of ourselves to things just because there's an opportunity. So when the time comes and we need to start applying, or we can apply, lots of conversations with school facilities and collaboration between like what is actually something we can get done for you guys that you've planned for.
I do see this as a work that Lila and our facilities team would bring to our capital subcommittee for your conversation and input as well. I think that's an important step in the process. So I'm glad we've got that up and running. That's good.
If I could maybe quickly chime in, and Lila, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's different, Yaku, from the ZEB policy of like in the case of a vehicle, like we have to go through the process and like consider, quote unquote, like the other vehicles. In something like that, though, I don't anticipate that it would be any different. I guess it depends on the situation, but like theoretically, if that boiler, like we knew it was likely going to fail, we'd probably have in the roadmap, like, okay, like we knew this was happening and we recommend like these models, and like that doesn't bind us to going with like the more efficient models. But at the same time, if that was unexpected, that's not like it's going to be, hey, like now we have to look at these different things because we're under this policy. Like it's slightly different.
Okay.
I actually have an example of what we could start with. One of the things that we now know about Fails Solar is that we're getting whacked every month, $3,000 fee to National Grid on the basis of demand charges. And obviously, the way that works is that if at night, let's say in the winter, when we don't have solar energy being produced, we have to draw from the grid. And based on the way the contracts work, we have to pay a demand charge for the highest value of energy, the highest amount of energy in a month. And that's what the demand charge is based on. So I would suggest that perhaps using this program, we could start looking at batteries for Fails and eliminate that charge. And to that extent, it seems to be logical. And we can do the comparison of that option in terms of, first of all, the design, where it goes, how much it's going to cost, what's the benefit going to be. In my mind, every time we do one of these, it's got to be a net positive benefit to the town. Otherwise, don't do the investment. And the other thing I would speak to is that I don't believe that the beginning of the program should come from the staff in our facilities department. I think it has to be a joint discussion with the committee on the basis that it's a bigger picture than just the people in the facilities department. So those are suggestions I would make, and I think certainly I would be pleased to see some beneficial outcome to eliminate the demand charge at Fails. And to the extent we do something else, the same thing. National Grid is not stupid. They figured out a way to get the money back based on people getting, quote unquote, paid for their generation of solar energy. And they changed the program to match. So, and every utility in the country, it's not just them, did the same thing. So we might as well be smart too.
Yeah, please.
I think the batteries and Fails is a good opportunity. If it doesn't reach the $1 million, you can actually concatenate dissimilar projects together, such as something at the fire station and batteries and stuff to get to the million. Because you get one shot at that, so you want to make sure you're getting the most value. So I think it's good. It needs to be collaborative to make sure we're optimizing across all the different department needs.
So we can only apply for one up to $1 million grant. That's what you're saying?
The two grants, technical assistance and the accelerator
Right, the
grant,
125 and then
and the 1 million, we get one chance to apply for those two. Because it's one big pool of money that they're offering the state an opportunity to apply for once. And if we hear that they're kind of refilling that pot of money for these grants, there's a possibility definitely in the future that it could open up again, something similar to this extent. But really, it's just like right now at the moment, a one-time experience to get this funding to help you with something. But we're always going to have that consistent Green Communities competitive grant opportunity year after year as well.
Okay. Well, any other comments, questions? Thank you very much. We will have to vote in the next meeting. I want to give, like I said, Sarah a chance to ask questions as well.
Definitely.
Thank you
for
very
your
much.
feedback.
Okay. That ends our discussion section of the agenda, and we're moving on to the school committee reports. Steve?
I think I said what I needed to say tonight, so that's good. Thank you.
Jane?
Nothing to report.
Tim? Jerry, your last report.
Last time I suppose I'll give my report. So as you guys know, in Westborough, it's tradition for summer break that at the elementary schools, they do a field day every year, and that is taking place at all the elementary schools. It's going to be on Thursday, June 4th at Hastings, Friday, June 5th at Fales, and on Wednesday, June 10th at Armstrong. Then at each of the three schools, all the grades have been assigned a color to represent their grade level, so parents are encouraged to dress their kids up with the appropriate color to show some school spirit. And more information can be found about those events on the respective parent squares for all three schools. And then for Fales specifically, they are still looking for volunteers to help run the activities. So it'd be great if any parents are willing to help out, since I think there are a couple volunteers short at the moment. At Gibbons Middle School, the online yearbook sales have now closed, but they still have a couple extras, a limited supply available that can be purchased for $33 each. And any parents or families who are interested can email Lisa Scarlett at all lowercase Scarlett, SCARLETTL at westboroughk12.org. And time of year where there's a bunch of stuff going on at the high school. Tomorrow evening on Thursday, May 28th at 7 p.m., high school's going to be hosting their annual award ceremony at the high school auditorium, where the entire community comes together to celebrate some students who've achieved or done well academically. And then on Friday at 7 p.m., there's going to be baccalaureate for seniors and 2 family members. It's recommended that families arrive by 6:30 p.m. to ensure they have a seat. This Saturday, it's graduation, so Superintendent Borsch will be speaking. I believe Yuki was speaking as well. I'll be giving a speech as well. It's going to be at 5 p.m. on the Westborough High School turf, as long as the weather holds up, which it looks like it will at the moment, fingers crossed. Then finally, after graduation, Westborough seniors will be able to participate in project graduation from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. at Teamworks in Northborough. And for that event, students are expected to stay for the entire celebration, so they can't leave and return after they enter the event. And more information can be found online and in an email that all seniors received on May 24th. That's all.
Sounds very exciting. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Jerry. And I have nothing to report as well. So we can move on to the last item on the agenda, the consent agenda, which has 2 items. A donation from the Mark Friedrich Foundation and the approval of minutes from our last meeting on the May 13th. Allison, did you want to speak to the donation?
Yeah, this is just a wonderful donation of cash, a cash foundation from this foundation, and it's around supporting our unified sports and fitness programs at Westborough High School, which, as you know, are programs that are inclusive, that allow students with IEPs and special needs to be participating right along their peers, and they really encourage a sense of kind of community and belonging. So it's wonderful stuff, and a very lovely and generous donation to support that.
Yes, thank you very much for the donation. Any other comments?
Make a motion. Should I
Yes.
make a motion? I make a motion to accept the donation to the high school.
And the minutes.
Oh, and the minutes from 5/13/26.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 400, the motion passes. Thank you very much. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 400. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you for staying.
Jerry.
Thank you.